Some people age like autumn trees, shedding loud and fast, but others age like stones smoothed by water, quietly, inwardly, barely seen. There are those over 70 who still walk as if carrying music in their spine, whose hands don't tremble when holding stillness, who greet the morning not with dread, but with small, deliberate rituals that tell the body, I'm still here, I still remember how to return. If you're still doing this, you are not aging in reverse. You are remembering forward. Not everyone sees it. The way you stand up slowly, not because you have to, but because you choose to feel each joint arrive. The way you breathe before stepping out of bed, so your body feels invited, not ordered. You don't rush. You've unlearned the urgency of youth. Now, your pace is your wisdom, your stillness is your rebellion, and the quiet things you do each day, they are not habits. They are messages, markers, anchors. This isn't just aging well. This is a return to alignment with your bones, your breath, your own forgotten time. 1. The way you rise in the morning still matters. Walter no longer sets an alarm. He says the body has its own memory of light. And if you trust it, it will wake you gently before the world becomes too loud. He doesn't spring out of bed. There's no need. Instead, he waits a few breaths, lets his eyes adjust to the quiet, lets his ankles move like seagrass under still water. It's something he learned long ago, back when he served at sea, how every vessel needs a moment before it moves. Back then, they checked every bolt, tested the rudder. Now, he checks his own balance, slowly, reverently, not out of fear of falling, but out of respect for the ground that still holds him. He stretches his legs under the covers, not to exercise, but to greet them, to say, I still remember you. I still need you. The room is still dim, but he knows where the chair is, where the slippers sit. That familiarity is a kind of safety, one he's built by rising the same way every day. When his feet finally meet the floor, it's not a movement, it's a conversation, between skin and surface, between memory and gravity. There's science in this, about proprioception and how grounding rituals can stabilize gait, reduce disorientation. But Walter wouldn't name it. He just knows the days he skips this. His knees protest. His balance shifts. He says it's not about avoiding a fall, it's about honoring the moment before you rise, the stillness before the decision, the whisper before the walk. Each morning is a chance to begin again, not just by standing, but by listening to the version of yourself that's still learning how to be here. 2. The meals you make with your hands still hold memory. Elaine doesn't follow recipes, she follows seasons. The way carrots feel softer in October, how onions make her cry more in winter, and how her hands, though older now, still remember how to stir before she thinks. In her kitchen, nothing is exact. She measures by silence, by scent, by how the light lands on the wooden table. That table has seen more than meals. It's where she taught her daughter how to knead dough, where she once sat in the dark, holding a teacup her husband never came back to finish. Now, she cooks alone, but not lonely. Because when her knife moves through squash, when the garlic hits warm oil, she hears echoes. Her grandmother's laugh, her husband's humming, her own breath slowing. There's grief in every soup, but also remembering. And that remembering keeps her mind clearer than any crossword puzzle. Her doctor once asked how she stayed so sharp. Elaine just smiled, didn't mention the chopping board, didn't mention how every stew was a prayer with vegetables for words. Science has its words for it, something about cognitive loops and fine motor pathways. But Elaine doesn't need the data. She knows that her brain feels more alive when her hands are busy shaping what will nourish her. Each morning, she runs her fingers over the vegetables on her counter, some bruised, some firm, all chosen. She closes her eyes before peeling, as if saying thank you. Not for the flavor, but for the chance to still offer herself something warm, with hands that still remember love. And every night, as she rinses the pot, steam rising around her cheeks, she whispers to no one, still here. And the kitchen, in its silence, whispers back. 3. Your gait holds a map of everything you've survived. Harold doesn't stride anymore. He glides, slowly, like a pen tracing faded ink. like someone who still remembers what the ground used to feel like under younger knees. His steps are quiet now, not out of fear, but reverence, as if each sidewalk crack might hold the memory of someone he once was. There was a time his legs raced through puddles, carried groceries 2 flights without pause, lifted his child after bad dreams. Now, they carry him differently, less like a sprint, more like a ceremony. Each morning, he stands at the edge of his porch, cane in hand, 1 foot forward. Not to test the air, but to let his body decide how much story it's ready to hold that day. His daughter once asked why he mutters before leaving the house. He said, "I greet the road before it greets me." And it's true. Before each walk, he whispers a name, sometimes his own, as if calling forth a version of himself that remembers movement without pain. There's research about stride length, mindfulness, how walking with awareness improves balance and cognitive recall. But Harold doesn't need a study. He needs rhythm. He needs the familiar rhythm of heel, toe, pause, of cane, breath, sky. The world doesn't rush him anymore. And maybe that's the gift of this age, when each step is no longer a path to a destination, but a chance to remember the places your body has already taken you. He says some days feel like gravel, others like grass, but all of them feel like walking towards something that still wants him here. And that, he says, is enough. 4. The breath you take before reacting is a sign. You're becoming wiser, not weaker. There's a silence Anna keeps in her pocket, a small, invisible pause she's learned to reach for when the world tips too fast. It didn't come from books. It came from too many times she wished she could unsay something. Undo the flare in her voice. Unfreeze the look in a child's eyes when warmth was replaced by fire. Now, before the reaction rises, she closes her eyes, as if reaching for a doorknob in the dark, a threshold back into herself. She remembers one winter evening, her grandson, only 6 then, spilled hot chocolate across the white rug. The cup shattered, so did the stillness. She felt it rising, that old pulse of sharpness. But then, she stopped, took one breath, then another. Let the heat settle somewhere else. Kneeling down, she whispered, "We'll clean this together." He blinked, nodded. Something between them stayed whole that night. She doesn't meditate, doesn't journal, but that breath, it's her ritual. Each time she chooses it, it feels like choosing a softer future. Science might call it limbic regulation, shifting amygdala control, neuroplastic interruption. But Anna doesn't care for names. She only knows that when she lets breath come first, the room stays open, the people stay near. She says wisdom isn't louder than anger. It's just quieter, more consistent, like tea cooling beside a window, like wind waiting to speak until you've stopped shouting. That pause, it's not weakness, it's her strength disguised as mercy. And some evenings, when the house is still, she takes a breath. Not because she's angry, but because she wants to remember who she's becoming. One pause at a time. 5. Your ability to sit in silence without needing to fill it. That's your power. Francis doesn't reach for the remote anymore. He says the quiet isn't empty. It's just honest. His mornings begin without sound. No headlines, no clinking dishes, no voices. Just the breath of the room and the way light leans into his curtains like it has something gentle to say. There was a time when silence unnerved him. It felt like forgetting, like absence made louder. After his wife passed, the quiet stretched across the house like fog, thick and unmoving. He tried to outrun it, background news, radio sermons, the chatter of busy nothing. But it made him lonelier. Louder didn't mean less alone, just less heard. One day in the kitchen, he poured a cup of tea and didn't turn anything on. The air held, the kettle whispered, and he realized he was still here. That morning began a quiet ritual. He sits now, every day, fingers curled around warm ceramic, eyes soft on the sycamore tree outside. He doesn't meditate, doesn't label his peace. He just listens to the faint crackle of old wood, to the language of his own breath. Researchers might say this state of reflective quiet enhances cortical resilience, reduces cognitive overstimulation, preserves executive function. Francis would shrug. He only knows that in stillness, his mind feels like it exhales. He reads the same poem each day, not to understand it better, but because the rhythm reminds him how to be. Silence, he says, is not the absence of life. It's the room where meaning gathers its courage to speak. And now, when he hears nothing, he smiles. Because in that nothing, he finds everything he was once too busy to feel. Some mornings, the light feels heavier. It pours through the window not like warmth, but like a memory you didn't ask to revisit. You look in the mirror, not to judge, but to remember. The arms that once lifted groceries like they were nothing. The knees that bent without thinking. The face that didn't hesitate to laugh out loud. And there, in the quiet, a strange tenderness stirs. Because grief doesn't only come from death. It comes from distance. From waking up one day and realizing you're no longer the version of you who could carry everything. There's sorrow in that. Not bitter, but soft. Like a coat you forgot you owned that no longer fits but still smells like a younger season. Sometimes it visits without warning. A song you once danced to. A scent that brings back someone's hands. The ache isn't sharp. It lingers like fog. And yet, that version of you didn't vanish. They became the soil. Their joy, their striving, even their impatience, all folded into the person who now moves slower, but sees more. To mourn them isn't to wish them back. It's to thank them for bringing you here. There is dignity in that thank you, even if it's silent, even if it comes in the middle of making tea when your wrist trembles a little, and you pause just long enough to feel the presence of who you once were, and the peace of who you are now. Not weaker, just softer, not gone, just become. It's not about turning back. It never was. The ones who seem to age in reverse, they aren't chasing youth. They're remembering something we all forgot in the noise. That life was never about how fast you moved, but about how fully you arrived. That vitality wasn't hidden in supplements or secrets, but in presence. The kind you feel when you stir soup slowly, when you tie your shoes with intention, when you pause before answering. There's a rhythm inside you older than your aches, a way of walking that doesn't resist the years, but dances with them. Those who still glow after 70, they aren't lucky. They're listening to their joints, to their breath, to the quiet voice inside that says, "It's okay to go slower now. You'll see more this way." This isn't magic, it's remembrance of how to sit beside yourself without judgment, of how to greet the morning not with urgency, but with arms open, not for productivity, but for peace. And maybe the real secret isn't youth at all. It's returning to the part of you that never needed to be younger, only more awake. Not to fight time, but to feel it move through you, like wind through tall grass. Still, rooted, alive. If you're still waking with wonder, if you still pause to hear how your body feels today, if you still notice light moving slowly across the floor, then aging isn't retreat, it's return. Return to the rhythm beneath the rush, to the warmth inside the quiet, to the knowing that strength now lives in gentleness, not in force. They told you aging was about what you lose, but here you are, still gaining presence, still gaining peace. The hands may shake, the legs may soften, but the awareness, that grows louder. And maybe that's all you ever needed. A quieter way to be whole, a slower way to feel full. So, if this moment feels soft, if something inside you just unclenched a little, stay there, let it breathe. And if walking with us feels right, we'll be here, not ahead, just beside you, as always.